Over the next year, things drastically began to change as the teleportation systems came online and new and adaptive ways to assist the transition between worlds became possible and far more effective. The dawning of a new age within this multiplanetary empire had begun. The gods of the core were now walking amongst them. Initially, they began with the members of Delius's tribe, one by one beginning to bring them over from the core world and assisting their transition. After some tweaking, they managed to get the mastery time of the new timeline down to little more than a week, assisted by a native, of course. They quickly adapted to this new environment, finding a way to transfer Delius's mastery via these neural uplinks created courtesy of Asa and the very first person on transport, Jirara, Delius's future wife, who he was more than happy to see after such a long time for him being separated, though for her it was barely any time at all. Though Asa was fairly busy and couldn't be there for the initial meeting, nor any of the subsequent transition of other members of his tribe, including several elders. But eventually, after Jirara got accustomed and the neural adaptations were no longer necessary, Asa finally found some time to poke in. As Delius and Jirara were having a conversation, Asa strolled in with her lab coat and clipboard as usual. "Oh, hello, Delius," Asa said as she entered the room. "I see that you've got Jirara up to speed. It's nice to finally meet you, Miss Jirara. And those transmissions don't do you justice. You're far more beautiful in person," Asa said, smiling as she extended her hand. And Jirara gladly accepted, shaking right back. "So you're Asa," Jirara said, smiling rather slyly in Asa's direction. That's curious," Jirara said. Delius did not make any mention of how adorable you are, Jirara said as she reached out, grabbing hold of Asa's cheeks and pinching them. "I mean, she is just gorgeous. I love her." "And what's that smell?" Jirara said, taking a sniff. She smells lovely. Do all women on this planet smell like this? Whatever it is, I want some." "Don't worry, Jirara, I'll get you some. It's called perfume," Delius said, as he leaned against a nearby table. "And what about one of these?" Jirara said, as she hugged Asa tightly, pulling her in, pressing her face against Asa's. What are you doing?" Asa said, somewhat nervously. "Oh, don't be so shy. It's just a little hug, that's all. You're a pretty girl. I bet you've gotten those before," Asa said, as she released the hug and then slung her arm over Asa's shoulder. "Okay, so give me the skinny," Jirara said, leaning in to Asa just a bit. "You're the one he talks about the most in our transmissions, so I get the feeling he's been spending a lot of time with you, right?" Jirara asked. Yeah, we're friends. I mean, that's all we are." "Really? Come on. You can be honest with me," Jirara said, once again getting that sly smile and giving Asa a wink. "Come on, pretty girl like you. You don't seem like the type that's married already. You're telling me he hasn't, made a move?" No," Asa replied nervously. "Well, why not? I mean, he's handsome, right? You can't tell me you don't think he's good looking." "Well, I, I mean, I don't know. I guess, Asa began to blurt out and stumble over herself, quite awkwardly as she flushed a bright red. Oh, look at how quaint she is! And that cute, flushed little face. I love her. I want to keep her, Jirara said, hugging Asa once more. Now, Jirara. She only just met you. She's not accustomed to your unique personality just yet. Let her adjust a bit, Delia said, smiling. I mean, seriously, can you try to take it easy on the women? Well, somebody has to do it, Delius, Jirara said, looking frustratedly to Delius. I mean, seriously, I'm your only wife. And I'm not even your wife yet. I'm your future wife. And you keep shooting all the other girls down. How long do you expect me to be a single wife? Jirara, don't start with me again on that. Come now, Delius. You and I both know that you're far too old to only have a single wife. People are starting to think you're weird. And who exactly am I supposed to talk to you about? Or more to the point, who am I supposed to talk about you with? I want sisters already. And you're moving far too slow. You're too picky. I mean, really. Dosen already has 4 wives. I see them every day, sitting around, laughing, talking, having a good time amongst each other. Their kids all playing and frolicking together. I want that, Delius. And you're my future husband, so you're going to give it to me. Come now, Jirara. It isn't a race. Life is long. Give it some time. Being more selective just makes the relationships more special. Oh, don't you give me that, Delius, Jirara replied, releasing Asa and beginning to step towards Delius, waving her finger. You just don't want to admit that for as good as you are at hitting things, you are terrible at making the first move, or even the second or third move. I mean, really, I practically had to force you to marry me. And if I can do it with me, then I can do it with someone else. So get choosing, or I'll choose for you. Fine, Jirara. I'll start looking right away, Delia said, rolling his eyes as he stopped leaning on the table. Well, I'll go somewhere else so you two can get acquainted. Jirara, try to go easy on her, Delia said as he walked out of the room. Jirara, typically angry and sticking out her tongue as he left. That man is so frustrating. But, Jirara said, looking over to Asa, that does give us some time to talk, she said, once again creeping back to that somewhat unsettling smile. But things progressed normally throughout that year, with many things taking place, including Delius and Asa's wedding, arrangements for him and Jirara, which they had went through the trouble of planning off-world so that they could make a big celebration of it. It even got broadcast worldwide as an interplanetary event in which people got to see a traditional wedding between the gods, which naturally had much more of a tribal feel than the weddings that people had become accustomed to on the other worlds, as Delius's people did have somewhat interesting customs, including a rather erotic dance between the new partners that, suffice it to say, had a lot of people worked up. The mixture of fluid movements, barely any clothing, and exceptionally sexual posturing made the display something to see. A traditional dance done at every wedding between the newlywed partners. A blessing of both desire and fertility, or the hopes of it, meant to show the beauty of two bodies interacting in much the same way that one might be inspired by the act of coupling itself. It was something that people hadn't as of yet seen, but after which became much the talk, regardless of what world in the system that you came from.